I'm sure this is something with which Catalina magazine publisher Kathy Aru readily agrees. We've also got former Colorado state senator and committee to defend the president, Chairman Ted Harvey, and the Price Futures Group senior analyst Phil Flynn. So, Kathy, I began with you. Let me begin with you then.
Okay.
This notion that Democrats are so hell-bent on reversing everything I've done that even if you don't flip over me, you'd be crazy to vote for any of them. You probably agree with that, right?
Oh, my gosh. I don't know where to begin. So he cut regulations, and that helps corporations, but then takes away consumer protections and hurts the environment. Bloomberg is someone that is entering the race, so I don't think the other guys are scarier to the GOP right now or to the Democrats. I think we have a really good candidate right now, and people are excited on both sides. So
who is that really good candidate?
Well, Bloomberg's entering the race, so
you like Bloomberg. You didn't mention Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders. That was where the president's focus was.
That's where it was, and he's trying to say everyone's crazy. And okay, let's focus on that in the bloodbath. But let's talk about the new guy in the race that's making the president very, very nervous. And this is a businessman who's very successful.
He's teasing it, but we'll watch. We'll watch closely. Ted Harvey, let me get your take on what the president is saying. I mean, this follows up on that World Series ad in which he acknowledges, or at least his people acknowledge, right, he might not be your cup of tea. But you can't ignore what's been going on with the economy, the jobs gains, and everything else. And when push comes to shove, you will not want to shove him out of office, you say?
And he's exactly right. I mean, he is pushing a free market capitalistic policies, truly cutting regulations by a third.
Well, they're not all free market, right? I mean, tariffs are not, instinctively free market, right?
Well, unfair trade practices that previous administrations have done for the last 30 years is not free trade either. To his credit, he is fighting back for the American people to make America great again, where other presidents have done nothing but to raise the white flag and surrender. To his credit, he is cutting taxes and lowering corporate taxes to make us competitive around the world when other presidents have been pushing higher corporate taxes. This president is creating jobs, the lowest unemployment rate in history, African unemployment rate, Hispanic unemployment rates at lowest in history. What more can you ask for from a president who's literally been under attack ever since he lifted his hand and swore the oath on the Bible? He has done incredible things. Imagine what would happen if he had the Congress working with him.
All right. Phil Flynn, I want to get your take on something that the president immediately zeroed in on. We'd be doing a lot better than we're already doing if not for the Federal Reserve. This he spent, a good deal of time discussing. This is from the president moments ago.
I did this despite a near record number of rate increases and quantitative tightening by the Federal Reserve since I won the election. 8 increases in total, which were, in my opinion, far too fast an increase and far too slow a decrease.
What do you make of that, Phil? If not for those, first the increases, then the slow response to lower them, that the Fed complicated things. Now, of course, the Federal Reserve said in retrospect, the cuts that have followed have come in response to the uncertainty around trade. Where are you on this?
I think he's absolutely right. And I think even the Fed would admit that they made some mistakes being too aggressive when it came to raising interest rates. And that's why they had to reverse course. And if you look at what's happened to the economy because of that, yes, we grew a little bit slower. If you saw the slowdown in manufacturing that we saw just recently in the last quarter, probably a direct response to that increase in interest rates. I think President Trump was saying, look at the whole economy. Yeah, we have a trade war going on. Yeah, that's impacting the economy. But Fed, that's part of your job to look at the big picture. Yes, there's a trade war. Give our manufacturers some cover and don't be too aggressive and stick to the book. These are incredible times. And I think the most important thing about the speech, let's face it was a laundry list of successes. I mean, there were more successes in that speech that I heard since any president, since, President Ronald Reagan. I don't think any president can say, look at what we've done and have the numbers to back it up. And he did that beautifully in the speech today.
You know, Kathy, he hopes to paint the contrast with, let's say, I know you're looking at and maybe eager to see a Michael Bloomberg enter the race, but barring that, the front runner for the time being, and that could change. Joe Biden, you know, in and out of some of these polls. Elizabeth Warren surging, Bernie Sanders still strong. The passion, I think it's fair to say, in the Democratic Party is on the extreme progressive side. And I'm wondering, it's almost as if the president is saying, I hope one of those two, particularly Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, emerges as the nominee, because I'm going to talk about tax increases. I'm going to talk about their plans to build this huge government that is going to undo everything you, the American people, have seen over the last 3 years. How do you feel about that?
He was so confusing. I mean, the fact checking. It was so hard to keep track. That was a speech about bragging, and those numbers are not accurate. He was not good for the economy. We have so much debt. Why do we have so much debt if we have such a great economy?
Well,
why do we need to lower interest
under
rates?
Barack Obama. That's getting to be a bipartisan.
But Barack Obama needed to. We actually had to do a lot of cleaning up with that economy. This president inherited a good economy.
I don't localize it to this. I mean, the president debt has been something. You're quite right. Has to be addressed. It hasn't been addressed by other parties substantially. Well, Ted, let me get your take on this, because Kathy does mention a couple of things that were a little bit specious. Like when I thought the president was talking about tariffs, they're a good thing, and the Chinese are paying. We all know that that is not the case. That American distributors, retailers have to suck it up. It's up to them whether they can pass it along. He's quite right to say that the Chinese absorbed this by devaluing their currency to limit the blow. But the fact of the matter is, it has had an impact on the consumer, not as much as it could have been, but that and coupled with what he called a 9% surge in wages in the last 3 years. Best I can imagine he's talking about is that it's been averaging about 3% per year, but in real terms, you take out inflation, which is moderated lately, we're really talking about a third of that. So it's not as gangbusters as it's presented, but by and large, you're convinced the data does favor him, right?
Well, certainly it does. I mean, you look at every indicator, whether it is GDP, whether it is wages going up, whether it is the stock market that's breaking all-time highs. It was a bragging session today, and he has deserved a bragging session because it doesn't matter what indicator you're looking at, he is succeeding. He is winning across the board. And the reason why you're seeing Bloomberg come in right now is because the Democrats realize they can't beat him with this incredible economy, with the truly the three socialists that are running right now at the top of the ticket. They are desperately looking for anybody to get into the race, and I would have been arguing for months that the nominee of the Democrat Party is yet to announce their candidacy.
Oh, wow. All right, and that's a crowded field already. Phil Flynn, the president was talking about this resistance to fossil fuel technology and you know, obviously what's been going on in the oil front, energy front, natural gas front, the fact that we're the world's largest independent oil producer now, that has given us some real bona fides, and the Democrats are going to destroy that. Now, he also mentioned that some of the ideas that they've come up with to sort of sideline that are themselves going to lead to real problems. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Listen, the U.S. energy story has been the biggest boom for the average American that we've ever seen. You know, look at gasoline prices, historically low prices. You know, anything, I talk to consumers all the time about gasoline prices. That hits them right in the heart and soul. You know, and to be honest, everybody's worried about the environment, but at the end of the day, they're worried about whether they can drive to work and back, you know, for a reasonable price. And listen, you have to put that into perspective. The global economy runs on oil. I'm sorry. And if we make a dramatic turn back from that and to think it can be easily replaced, isn't going to happen. Not without a lot of pain to every American. Hey, listen, if every American says, hey, I'm willing to go through a recession, lose millions of jobs, you know, to get off of energy in the next, 10 years, then vote for that. They have that opportunity. But I think most Americans are saying, listen, let's try to balance the economy in some of these, the sky is falling about global warming with real growth for the Americans.
Okay. A lot of my guests use their views, not necessarily those automatic facts, but we want to be generous and fair to everyone.